Hello, one and all, and welcome to episode 68 of Opposite Field. Bleeding Your Colors is baseball podcast. I'm Trevor. This is Colin. And as you can see from the wonderful graphic in the background, we're going to talk about All-Stars. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good. I'm glad that we are competing with the SPs right now. So if you're, not watching fake award shows, you can come listen to our brilliant baseball analysis.
Yeah, because I know they're probably going to have Stephen A. Smith present like 7 awards, so
7 awards.
you can just deal with his speeches, or
He
you
got
can come here and
got a short for every award.
talk about the game that is more about just representation more than the results, more than anything.
Exactly. You know, it'll be good for the sport of baseball to not get acknowledged from ESPN, but from us.
Yeah. We are more important.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, Otani did win an award, I saw. So that's the lone representative for baseball.
Yeah. You had to get one in. You had to get one in before.
You know what? You might as well give it to the best player. So.
Yeah, and as the Hey Now background that we have, that has nothing to do with Hey Now from the Larry Sanders Show. That's a niche reference. I'm going to stop those. The All-Star Game rosters in full have been announced, and what we're going to do this evening before we kind of go into a bit of a pre-trade deadline diatribe is just go with what we think of the rosters, what we think of the starting lineups, and how it matched up to what we put our ballots in for and what we kind of predicted to be the periphery a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So we're just going to get started with the American League, where I think the biggest swings and misses came from me with the Baltimore Orioles delegation. So, as if anybody isn't aware of yet, I'll just go through the starting lineup real quick. I'll go one through 9, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
So, at catcher, we have Adley Rutschman. It's his second selection. First baseman, Toronto is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., his 4th selection. At second base, Jose Altuve, his 9th selection. At third base, Jose Ramirez, his 6th selection. At shortstop, Baltimore's Gunnar Henderson, his first time. The leading vote getter in the American League was the Yankees' Aaron Judge, his 6th selection. Joining him from the Yankees in the outfield is Juan Soto with his 4th selection. Stephen Kwan gets in from the Cleveland Guardians for his first selection as the last outfielder. And at designated hitter, it is Yordan Alvarez, his 3rd selection. And before we even kind of dive into that, I think we need to not necessarily break the news because it came out like 4 hours ago. But Jose Altuve will not be participating in this year's All-Star game. He has a bruised hand, so he will be replaced by Minnesota's Willie Castro on the American League All-Star roster. So, before we get into what our picks were for the starters, what do you think of that lineup in terms of what the fans selected?
I think they got it right. I don't see anyone top to bottom that undeserving. I think everybody is pretty much give or take what we thought was going to be there. I think that the most surprising to me is Stephen Kwan, at least being a starter. But other than that, I don't have a problem with any of them. How about you?
No, and I think if you go back to our discussions, I think the guy that ended up getting injury subbed was the only one that I was kind of iffy about was Altuve, but
Yeah.
you kind of thought of like a lifetime achievement type of deal. He's the guy between both leagues that has the most selections, and is also he's having a good enough season where you can't really dispute it. But
Yeah.
I thought that like Marcus Semien, because I didn't think Texas was going to get anybody else in.
I feel like second base is also a very hard position to single out a player, like other than Altuve, yeah, you mentioned Marcus Simeon, but then after that, it's who, it's not like shortstop, third base, or first base where you got some guys you can kind of plug in if some other guys couldn't make it. Um, obviously, I thought Bobby Witt Jr. would be a starting shortstop, but we were kind of going back and forth with Gunnar
Yeah,
Henderson and Bobby Witt. And Bobby Witt did make the team. He's obviously the reserve. But again, uh, I feel like second base has always kind of been the outlier in terms of the infield, just because you know other than Altuve, who's the next big name second baseman, if any, that's going to start? And for the NL, and we'll talk about it. Um, Had he not gotten hurt, it would have been Mookie Betts, I believe. But coming from what I know Mookie as, and before this season, he's not always been a second baseman. So at least at the big league level. So um, it's really one of those positions where you just have to go with the guy like Altuve who is the standout in that position.
yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst that he
No,
was voted in, because it's not something, and we talked about it in the ballots podcast of just in past years there used to be a lot of ballot stuffing where you just get a bunch of people from one team and you're just going, what, why are there 5 Brewers in
yeah,
the running, why
yeah,
are there 5 Phillies voted in, shit like that. That was annoying, but you kind of just understood that was the nature of the beast. And if there
right,
were teams that really just their marketing campaigns just took off and people really got into it,
yeah.
that that's good on them, because that's the way the system is, and that was the way that they were going to get their players recognized. And as much as the baseball purist to me hates it, uh, I can't, because it's you can't fight it until it changes.
Right.
So there's nothing I'm going to do from the outside with it. So I'm just going to kind of accept the fate and hope that the reserves are filled out appropriately,
Yeah.
which a lot of those years they kind of weren't. So now,
Yeah.
but we're gonna talk about the reserves for both leagues, and I think it was, you're always going to have snubs, but I think this year they did a fairly decent job.
Oh, I agree, and I was gonna kind of piggyback on what you're saying is that I think this year with how many first timers there's been and how many kind of recognition there's been both in the starting lineup and the reserves. I think this year more than ever, maybe the last 10 years, has been less of a popularity contest and more of a deserving spot.
Yeah, it is a lot of times, obviously, where you just you want to, because a lot of people just want to like rant and rave and go like, my guy didn't make it, blah blah blah. But there's so many people this year that I think you would have had to really stretch to
Yeah,
get them
yeah,
in my opinion. So
yeah. I agree.
I'm not super hurt by a lot of the omissions.
Yeah,
So to where we picked in the starters versus what actually came to pass. At first base, I went with Ryan Mountcastle, who did not make the team. And you went with Josh Naylor, who was a reserve. At second base, as we've discussed, I went with Marcus Semien. You went with Jose Altuve, who was voted a starter, but will not participate due to injury. And Marcus Semien will probably take that starting role, or they may just give it to Willie Castro as that like for like. Who knows?
Yeah,
it's up to the manager.
they might, they might give it to Simeon strictly because it's being played in Texas.
Yeah, but they also may do it where they just want to give him that fourth inning at bat where he comes on and gets that standing ovation off the bench.
Okay.
Who knows? The All-Star game is weird in that thing where they try to get people those plaudits in different points of the game.
Yeah.
Like I don't think if you're ranking the relievers, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, of the 4 relievers on the American League roster, I think Kirby Yates would be the least likely to be used.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, because it's in Texas, there's no chance he doesn't get in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and to try to, well, especially with the relievers in All-Star game, they try to get them their inning just to kind of get that, like, for example, when Rivera's final season was going on, I think, if I remember correctly, the American League was up by a lot, or they were down by a little against the National League, and they still got Rivera in there because it was his final All-Star game. And I think that's kind of how the managers like to play it in the later innings.
Yeah, with the pitching more than anything, they try to get all the guys that are able to go in terms of the eligibility that's been put forth by the league. They're trying to not leave any stone unturned.
Right.
All right. We both picked Jose Ramirez. Good to us.
Good for us.
I picked Connor Henderson. You picked Bobby Witt Jr. Starter and reserve. We talked about this at depth. It's a 1A, 1B thing.
Yep.
I don't think you could have made a very cohesive argument for either guy.
And ironically, both in the home run derby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting.
Along with Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both guys. I think my general thing was just rewarding Baltimore for being in first place.
Yeah, I agree.
If Bobby Witt had overtaken him at the end with the second phase voting, I wouldn't have batted an eye.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Catcher Adley Rutschman. We both there's no argument there. There was no discussion really. It was just Adley Rutschman. He's the catcher for the most complete team in the American League, and he's taken a staff that has one better than average pitcher and turned them into a supreme force. So
yeah,
his hitting is almost secondary.
So if Judge was hurt or didn't want to play or whatever, I think Adley Rutschman would have been the unanimous AL pick, the same way as, and we'll get to it, I'm just going to say it, Ohtani was the NL unanimous pick.
Yeah, I think Rutschman was the easiest selection. Like we both picked Jose Ramirez at third base, but Rutschman was the one that there was kind of no.
There was no pressure.
Salvador Perez is the backup on the roster,
and
neither of us would have voted for Salvador Perez to be the starter in the American League. So you can't. You just kind of let that be.
Exactly.
As we talked about with the outfield, I went Judge, Santander, and Kwan. You went Judge, Soto, and Duran. We each got 2 starters right. But we all, in the end, with recent news, got all-stars because Anthony Santander got added to the roster because Kyle Tucker's hurt. oh so conveniently. And Jaron Duran made the roster as a reserve.
Yeah,
Very much
deserving.
not because I think I went back and looked at our discussion. We were thinking if they were going to take a pitcher and a hitter,
Yeah,
the hitter was going to be Devers. But the second
which
Devers was like hurt,
yeah,
and then they kind of made that immediate substitution with Jordan Westberg, that
yes,
like Duran made a lot of sense.
right, right. In
Because
terms
even
of this
though, yeah,
lineup,
you're getting the rep with Tanner Houck,
yeah,
getting Duran on that roster. I'll let you talk. I'll let you speak his praises. But yeah, it made a lot of sense.
it did. Yeah, I think that, and I'll talk more about them later. But I think in terms of this roster, top to bottom, outside of what Devers quietly has done, um, I think Duran is a standout player this year.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and I think sometimes we both get kind of fall into those pitfalls of just looking at our guys' stats with a
Yeah,
bit more of rose-colored glasses. But I think in this instance, if you look at the outfielders in the orbit of the American League, if Duran didn't make it, he was going to be like the first guy out.
right.
So even if was a guy that was going to get subbed in, I think he would have been like the first guy in. So
Yeah, yeah,
him, uh, because my other one was as that kind of last guy in was Brent Rooker from the A's.
yeah.
But the second that they took Mason Miller as a reliever, I'm like, there's no way they're putting two A's on this roster.
Nope,
So
nope.
Duran was an absolute slam dunk from that point for me.
Yeah, and
So,
also, I looked around after I actually also did listen to our picks recently, and I'm looking around just the AL East and forget the Yankees because they have a stacked outfield, and two of them made it.
yeah.
Springer's not having a great season at all. Santander obviously is a deserving one. I was looking at Cedric Mullins. I don't know, if he's actually up to
Yeah, I think
par.
Santander's power is the only
The
thing that
bets, exactly. But then you get to Tampa Bay, and just for all the recent years of success that the Tampa Bay Rays have had, I think, and it pains me to say this because it is a serious matter, I think the Wander Franco drama has devastated this team.
I think that's a fair statement to make. And well, I don't think it is all enveloping of their problems across the board. It does talk to a sense of an all eggs in one basket type of deal,
Yeah,
because we've been talking for years how Tampa's kind of been playing on borrowed time.
yeah,
They've been running a system that has worked, but it has a definite shelf life because you can only run openers forever. You can only go with bargain basement guys forever before people get found out, before people get hurt, and before a guy that you dumped 100+ million into gets pulled into some real fucking dark shit in
yeah.
the Caribbean. And that's
And
not something that we're gonna get into in
no,
depth, but
no.
that's something where
It has an effect, and
yeah,
and the
and it
effect
goes
can go further. Which, if I'm a guy like uh, Randy Arozarena, who, in my eye, could be an all-star for that team, has been kind of a staple for that outfield, uh, going back to the World Series in 2020. That is a guy I think is who, if there was if the Tampa Bay Rays were uh, in greener grass, would have stayed. I think the second he hits free agency, he's not going to be a Ray anymore.
Yeah. And I agree with you. A lot of these guys that they put a lot of money in to kind of just keep the project afloat, to really not necessarily stagnate these guys' runs to free agency, but to just give themselves a better chance to have a negotiating platform
Yeah.
for them. Though it's all going out the window now. That the fact that they are in just such a crappy position,
Yeah.
and there doesn't seem to be much, at least chatter from the front office, that they're going to do anything about it.
No.
That they don't look like they're going to have a Marlins-esque fire sale. But I don't. And Arozarena is a guy that I feel
they got rid of
trade deadline, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I think he's a guy that may just be out the door now rather than leaving free agency.
I mean, they got rid of Margaret in the offseason, right? 3 of their pitchers who were essential to that World Series team in Glasnow, Snell, and Ryan Yarborough are gone. So, I don't think it's this whole thing with Franco, it's a clear reset from the bottom up, because while they managed to build a team from scraps, uh, eventually, like you said, the shelf life expired, and when things don't go your way and you can get paid more, look at Snell. Now Snell's not the best example. I mean, he didn't just win a Cy Young, but look what he's doing now. But like Glasnow is obviously in a better position. Ryan Yarborough is in a better position.
Yeah.
Margaret was on the Dodgers, but now he's on the Twins, right? Is that where that happened?
Yeah, he's bounced about. He was originally part of the Glasnow trade, but
Right.
then
But again, in a better position, and like we say, it's only a matter of time before Randy's out.
Yeah, and it's something where it's not necessarily the mighty have fallen, because I think we've kind of
They didn't do anything, but
this demise wasn't out of left field.
No.
Whereas I think personally, the Orioles' rise to prominence was because you always see those teams that draft really well, but until all those players come together, you can't really see it.
No.
And you want that to just you need that that empirical research before you make that statement that a team has arrived. Whereas Tampa, they've always kind of done that. They've done what they do. They've found guys off the scrap heap that they've turned into stars and then moved on for money. They've found pitchers that were willing to buy into their weird system and done great things with them.
Yeah.
And now just none of it's working.
It's not working.
It's
not working, and they can't pay the people who have success with them. Because once you are put on that spotlight, whether it's the playoffs or the World Series, and you can't get paid by a small market team, other teams are going to look at you, like San Diego did with Snell. And, we talked about it years ago about the whole drama with Snell in the World Series, and how you and I agreed that once that happened, he was out and he left.
Yep.
And you talk about the Orioles. Yeah. And it's funny, too, because we talk about the Orioles ascending, the Rays declining, and right in between these two teams, it's the Toronto Blue Jays. They don't know
what they want to do.
They don't know what they want to do. And we can save it for another show, but they have no plan at all. No. And I'll talk about it later, but the Red Sox might have a plan. The Yankees, who knows what's going on with New York lately. obviously Baltimore is the king of the crops. Tampa sliding, and Toronto is in that middle where they they're not necessarily sliding like Tampa, but they're definitely not ascending like Baltimore.
Yeah, that Toronto is on the slide, but like Tampa is on one that has like Vaseline or Crisco on it,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah,
Toronto is on one of those metal ones where you can't slide down and you're
yep,
just like getting burnt every 5 seconds. You're like, ow, oh no, oh God, why am I going down a metal slide in the middle
yeah,
of July? This is such a stupid idea.
yeah.
But
I mean,
like
Toronto
the
again.
first burn is like the George Springer contract, and
Let's
then
let's get into the NL because I think Toronto's going to be a hot topic when we talk about the trade
when we
prediction.
talk about trades, a
Yes,
1000%.
cool.
All right, before we get to the NL, though, I just want to shout out all of the
Pitchers, right?
first timers on the reserve
Oh,
because
okay.
there's a lot of guys that made the team, and like Salvador Perez. That's great that he's still in the thing, but like I said before, Josh Naylor,
Yep,
first time. Isaac Paredes from Tampa Bay, first
yep.
time. Bobby Witt Jr., first
First
time.
time.
Jaron Duran, first time. Riley Green, first time. David Fry, an absolute out of nowhere story from Cleveland.
Yeah,
Fucking over the moon for him, first
yeah.
time.
Good
And
for good
Jordan
for
Westberg coming in as the replacement for Rafael Devers, a guy that I was kind of thinking about picking as a wild card third baseman before I came to my senses and picked Jose Ramirez, first timer.
good for the Cleveland Guardians. You just gotta give it up for what they've been doing this year. Uh,
Yeah.
having all these all stars being this good in that division. I mean, when we talked about our season preview, I think we were kind of iffy on Cleveland and we weren't expecting it. And then all of a sudden,
And they've
uh,
lost their ace in the first
that's
week.
what I was just gonna say. All of a sudden, they lose their A. And look, any baseball analysis, any fan is gonna tell you that when you lose someone like that for the season, it's hard. It's hard to do what they have overcome it. Jose Ramirez is looking like the player I think everyone expected him to be. Like I think maybe he won't win it, but maybe MVP caliber player this season. Um, and then obviously getting his sixth All Star. So kudos to them. Um, and then the other thing I want to say about the reserves is Bobby Wood Jr. is to to be paid as a franchise player for Kansas City, and then make the to do what he's doing after he got paid by a small market team, and then make the All Star is rare. It's a rare feat. So you have to give him credit.
Yeah, getting the money and backing it up.
Yeah,
And to just compound what you're saying about Cleveland, yeah, like getting places in there as a closer is great, but you could have put any of those middle relievers from that squad in that thing.
yeah,
I think if you would have put Gaddis on that roster,
yeah,
granted, I don't think I think we're out of that era where they're going to put those middle relief guys. We're not in the Mike Stanton,
yeah.
not John Carlo, but Mike Stanton era where we're putting those guys on rosters.
Right.
Where and there's a lot of guys that maybe should be getting there, but that's just the way it is these days. But Cleveland has just so many fucking guys that you can make legitimate arguments for, and that's fun for them. And as a person who has gone, granted the first time I was in the the Guardian Stadium, I had a better conversation with a statue than I did a human being. But that's a place that when the team is winning,
Yeah.
that atmosphere is fucking electric.
And
So I'm
and
over the fucking moon for them.
and I think they're going to be one of the most active teams at the trade deadline.
Because and we'll talk about that going forward.
Yeah.
Because we're
We're the same. What is
We're
it?
we're on the same page.
We
We're on
are.
the
We are.
same page.
Absolutely.
All right. So the NL
Yeah.
starters. From the Milwaukee Brewers, William Contreras, his second selection. The overall vote getter from the National League, Bryce Harper at first base, his eighth selection for Philadelphia. Kettle Marte at second base, his second selection. Alec Baum at third base, his first selection. Trey Turner at shortstop, his third selection. Christian Yelich in the outfield, his third selection as well. The San Diego pair of Jurickson Profar and Fernando Tatis Jr., their first and second selections, respectively. And the DH that nobody's surprised about, Shohei Ohtani.
Yep.
What do you think, before we get to our picks, what do you think about that lineup overall? I think we basically have one point of contention, but even then, it's not one that you really want to just get super enthralled about.
Yeah, I think it's fine. You know, it's exactly what we expect. Who is the one? Who is the one?
We both went with Will Smith.
Yeah.
At catcher, and
Overworking Contreras. Yes.
And he's a reserve, but he's a guy that has been just so clutch for the Dodgers this year.
I don't think Wilton Contreras.
He's carried that rotation as they are just fucking banged up as hell.
I don't think Wilton Contreras was on our radar. Was he?
William, the one
William
from the Brewers.
Sorry. Yeah, was he on our radar? I don't know if we mentioned him. We definitely both picked Will Smith. I know for a fact we did.
But it's another one of those things where the Brewers did a lot of they had a lot of guys in the final vote type of deal.
Do you think, and I know it's a fan voting kind of, but do you think that was a way of saying, like, and we'll talk about, like, they didn't want this NL team to be mostly Phillies and Dodgers?
They didn't want it to be all Dodgers and Phillies.
Yeah, okay.
I think that in a certain sense, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's okay. Because how do you not give it to Will Smith? Like we said, like what he's doing with it, banged up rotation, especially, and you can attest to this more than me because you're a diehard Dodger fan, with the pressure that this Dodger team has to win it all this year, or in the next few years at least. How can you not give it to someone that's controlling this pitching staff?
Yeah, and the fact that this was a team that was expected to go win like 110 games in their sleep.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are kind of middle of the road in terms of the National League right now, in terms of like hierarchy, like Philly's there. Milwaukee is kind of, the record wise, they may be ahead, but in terms of just general performance, they are just slightly above or a little bit below.
Yep.
I think that Will Smith has been able to hit and kind of stop the bleeding with having Yamamoto out for as long as he's been out. Now Glasnow's out. Clayton Kershaw's been out for the entire season.
Yep.
And he's taken this. Just if anybody's watched a Landon Knack start this year, the fact that he's made that, because there's a couple times where that kid got into some real trouble.
Yeah.
And you could just see Will Smith from behind the plate just
calming him down. Yeah.
And then the next two pitches, perfectly framed. He called them perfectly, and he got the kid out of his own head. Yeah. And that, with young pitchers and with fucking journeymen, you just got to get them out of their own head, because they are not superstars. They are going to struggle. So you just have to find that rhythm with them as the catcher to just get through 5 to 6 innings, and then just work from there. And now that the fact that they have Evan Phillips back in the back of the bullpen, they have so much to work with, and he's the glue.
And
He's the glue.
and
And
the
everybody,
thing
yeah.
you got I was just gonna say the thing that everybody forgets about Will Smith and how good he is. Wait until Otani takes the mound because I think Otani is going to be a better pitcher than he ever was on Los Angeles, and he was on the Angel, and he was good on the Angel. Wait till you have till he has a catcher like Will Smith.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. It's and the fact that they are in the lineup as close as they are to each other, and they kind of you build that trust and you build those relationships. So when he does get on the mound, there's going to just be that built-in relationship, and I think it's gonna be phenomenal.
Speaking
But
of,
yeah,
question for you: when Otani comes back, do you think he's going to start out of the bullpen, or do you think they're going to throw him in the rotation?
I think when he comes back, he's not going to come out of spring training
Okay,
as a starter. He'll probably
like
I
inch
don't
his
think he'll
way
come out
out
of the
there.
bullpen, but he'll be
Yep.
doing like side sessions, and within like a month, like May
Like May.
May
Okay.
2025 is when he'll start.
So you think they're just gonna throw him right into the rotation?
I think they're gonna give him a bit of a buffer, but
Right.
once he's
So
good,
who gets knocked out of
he's not
that?
going to be coming out of the pen.
Who gets knocked out of there? Is it like a Dustin May? Is it like Kershaw? Like who gets put out of that rotation?
I think it's really going to be to like who is around at that point, because
Yeah. Yeah.
this deadline they're going to have to make some moves
Yeah.
to fill in the gaps, because I don't know when Mookie's going to be fully healthy
Yeah.
again,
Right.
and if you have just it, I think to go get a utility guy feels a bit short sighted. So if you can go get a guy that can go get you some like power,
Yep.
and then you kind of just make Mookie your guy where you move him a bit,
Right.
and that sounds so reductive for a guy that as great as he is.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that you can put in the outfield. He's a guy that you can put at second base in a pinch.
Yeah.
And there's something where if you go and get we'll talk about it in a bit, but there's a lot of players where you could just go, if they went and got this guy,
Yeah.
you would free up, because if you're trading for somebody of that ilk, you're giving up a pitcher.
Yeah.
And I think despite all of his injury woes, Dustin May is still a guy that a lot of teams are looking at, even if it's not for this year,
Right.
as either just a bridge 8th inning guy or a middle of the rotation starter.
Okay. Cool.
So, going off that, our picks for the NL were a bit more on the nose, I'd say. We both had Bryce Harper at first.
Yep.
I had Ketel Marte at second. You had Luis Arias, who was a reserve.
Yep.
I had Alec Baum at third, who was the starter. You had Ryan McMahon, who was Colorado's representative as a reserve, justly so. We both had Ellie De La Cruz at short, replacing Mookie. He was picked as a reserve, justly so. We both had Will Smith.
Yep.
Our outfield, that's where we each had an X on our things. I had Lourdes Gurriel, who did not make the team. You had O'Neill Cruz, who did not make the team.
Yep.
But you had Teoscar Hernandez, who made the squad and will participate in the Home Run Derby.
Yep.
And Fernando Tatis Jr., who I also had along with Christian Yelich. So I think with the National League, I don't think there's a lot to kind
Go
of
over. Go over.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's the
Yeah.
biggest things are there's a lot of first timers in terms of the pitching,
Yep.
which I think come the game itself may be a bit problematic, but it's an all-star game, so in the end, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
But it is also, I think, a signaling of the changing of the guard of the pitching in the National League.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, you just have to mention Paul Keene making the All Star right from the short time that he has impressed all of baseball. Uh, I think that I appreciate what the Pirates are doing with him, but if the guy's gonna throw a no hitter, let him throw a no hitter, as he
Yeah,
was about to today. And I get it. I get it. You want to preserve him. You want to save him. These are the kind. I hate to say it, but like someone at his caliber, is the right kind of guy to get that Tommy John surgery. Uh, soon. And I get what the Pirates are doing, but like this kid is special, man, and Pittsburgh doesn't really have a lot of things going for them. Even though I like a few of their players, O'Neill Cruz, um, obviously Skeen, Mitch Keller. It's a lot of it's a fun Ronnie Taylor. So it's a fun team to watch. I don't know how far they're going to take this squad, but you know if you're going to put all your chips in with Skeen and he throws a no hitter or he's throwing a no hitter, see if he can do it. That's all I'm gonna
yeah.
say.
My thing is he's had these games where he's gotten into the sixth and the seventh with 0-1 hit,
And then
and he
yank
gets
him.
into like that 90 pitch range, and then they're immediately just yanking him.
Yeah.
What what's one game?
Right. Right.
That's the thing in my head.
Yeah.
If you want to skip him his next time through rotation because he threw 125 pitches in this one, no one's going to bat an eye. No one's
No.
going to tell you you're wrong.
Right.
But you have this kid that is absolutely cruising 11 Ks.
Yeah.
And I think over half of them were swinging.
They were.
You
Yep.
you have to let him just go for it.
And I know that he's on this obviously this very short rookie contract, but if I'm the Pirate and I'm the Pirate, meaning I am a essential farm system for other teams, I think you pull a Bobby Wood Jr. kind of deal and you make him the franchise player. And if you have to give up O'Neill Cruz, if you have to give up Mitch Keller because you can't pay them, that's just the way it is. But you give this guy a 10-year deal and just keep him in Pittsburgh for as long as you can. Because if nothing else, he's gonna sell tickets.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100% on that. He's a guy that I think you can really build not only a team but a marketing campaign around. And
Yep.
baseball is something that's something that they lack in a lot of
Huge.
facets where they need to build stars.
Yeah.
Not necessarily organically. Maybe sometimes you gotta just force feed people, and he's a guy that you could either let organically let his pitching tell the story, or you could just kind of shove him down the general sporting public's
Shove
throats.
him down. Like if you're
Yeah,
Nike, put him on billboards in Pittsburgh. If the Steelers are not good anymore, then you make him the franchise or the face of Pittsburgh.
and it's just it's a willingness at this point. It's not a lack of talent from him. It's a willingness from these sponsors in the league.
Because I'll tell you what. If I'm a Pirates fan, you love what you're seeing, but I guarantee you're counting the days until he walks and joins a Dodger,
Yeah.
a Yankee, someone.
You're scared to death of him being Garrett Cole 2.0.
Exactly.
You're terrified.
Exactly. And so you have to do what you can to sign this guy long term. And if he walks away after 10 years, he walks away after 10 years. But you got 10 years out of him. And you know what? If you think it can't be done, look what Washington did with Strasburg. They saw what they had and they kept him there.
And granted, it burned him in the end,
But,
but
but he
they
won
won
a
a
World
World
Series.
Series.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean you have to get this done. I don't think it's a uh it's like a maybe anymore. I think it's a must.
Yeah. And we had an entire episode singing the praises of Paul Skeens.
Yeah.
And afterwards, he has just shown that everything that we were talking about him on that one was completely justified.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, click on the thing, go hit
Go
the
with
old
it.
little subby button, and then go watch that episode.
Yeah.
It has a picture of Paul Skeens in the background. You'll know which one it is. It doesn't have the guy from Smash Mouth.
And I think in baseball it's rarer because there's so many players, but like in basketball and in football, you talk about a once in a generation player, especially in basketball. I think this is what's keen is in baseball, and I think you have to capitalize that because if Otani is it now, that he's Keens is the next evolution.
Yeah, and that a lot of people talk about how the generation of the pitcher and how this is something where all the hitting stats are going down because the pitchers are getting better. And I've never understood how, if that's the narrative, how these pitchers aren't being pushed to the forefront
I know.
in terms of baseball's like marketing thing. I go, how the fuck is Chris Sale's like redemption season? And I hate to put salt in the wound. How is this not like a thing that baseball is just throwing in everybody's faces?
Especially where he's gonna have if they still do this, and I think they do, he's gonna win comeback player of the year. Like he has to.
Yeah, and from the betting odds, he's in the driver's seat of NL Cy Young right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it's crazy.
And it seems like a buried story, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. I know. And then maybe it's because the Braves aren't the Braves this year, or just maybe because you know, baseball or ESPN or whoever covers the game, they have not figured out a way to tell a story in baseball that doesn't involve the Red Sox versus the Yankees. You know, like I think once that whole mid 2000s baseball thing died out, they failed. I mean, the fact that it's the 5 years into his career and they still can't put Otani front and center is embarrassing to the sport.
Especially after a team, deferrals aside, just threw $700 million at him. And
yeah. And the guy's doing things that hadn't been done.
Maybe put him on all your video games. Maybe put him on your All-Star game press releases and all this stuff.
Put his jersey, like the guy's doing something that hasn't been done in over 100 years. And you're just like,
It's pretty cool, right?
It's cool, right? I guess, maybe. I don't know.
It's nice. It's okay.
You know, he's not white, so no.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah. But, I mean,
that's a different tale for a different audience.
But yeah,
yes.
So Skeens absolutely deserving of that All-Star. And then, did Chris Sale make it?
He did. And he is in his 8th appearance, but there are a significant number of first-time appearances from the National League and I'll just run through them real quick. And if you want to say anything about any of them at the end, by all means.
Okay.
We got C.J. Abrams from Washington. We got Ellie De La Cruz that we talked about.
Yep.
Ryan McMahon, which we talked about. Jackson Merrill, the third San Diego outfielder. Heliot Ramos from the Giants. Glasnow, who is injured in his injury replacement, was also a first-timer. Hunter Green, who just, I believe, had a 10 strikeout game today.
Yep.
Shota Imanaga from the Cubs. We were thinking that they were going to get one pitcher as an all-star, and he ended up being it.
Yep.
Reynaldo Lopez, a second reclamation project from the Braves.
Yep.
Making the all-star team. Skeens, Ranger Suarez, I believe he's the NL leader in wins right now. Logan Webb from the Giants. And then an absolute just murderer's row of in the relief department for the NL. Not if you've watched all year, but in terms of just name recognition. Jeff Hoffman from the Phillies, Matt Strahm from the Phillies, Tanner Scott from the Marlins, and Robert Suarez from the Padres. Any of those first-timers really stand out to you other than Skeens and like De La Cruz, because those are guys that we've spent significant time on?
Not really. I mean, I think all of those guys are deserving. I think that Shoto is the one that stands out to me the most, because I remember when the Cubs signed him, there was a lot of skepticism about what he could do here. And if you've looked at his numbers, especially for a bad Cubs team, he's doing incredible this year.
Yeah, even when he had that rough patch, he's kind of stabilized. Where it could have been something where he just fully Kagawa'd, where he had like 2 starts, so it's like, oh my god, this guy's, and then it just completely falls off a cliff.
Yeah,
stabilized from a couple of rough patches, and I think that's why he's on the team. The big one that I wanted to go in was Jackson Merrill. The fact that San Diego got all 3 outfielders onto the team. Profar, I think, being a starter, he just kind of got voted in. That I'm not saying
that's the one surprise for me, just because, fair or unfair, I think of Profar as a journeyman, a guy that bounces around from team to team, and he was that guy. He was on San Diego, and then he went to, where did he go last year? Was it the Rockies?
I think he ended up back in San Diego. He was on
the
Rockies the year before.
Okay, so he bounced back and forth, obviously. So it's surprising to me, and I like Profar as a player. But it's surprising to me that someone who is thought of as like a guy that bounces around and helps a lot of teams out was voted a starter for the All-Star game.
Yeah, he started last year in Colorado and ended up on San Diego. But yeah, I think he's a guy that maybe he just got paired with Tatis on a lot of ballots, and then when push came to shove, it was one of those things where they didn't want to put, like we were saying, they didn't want to put another Dodger in.
Yeah.
And in the end, a lot of these things that were like, oh, they don't want to put another Dodger in, and they only put one Dodger in. They didn't put Freddie Freeman at first. They didn't put Mookie Betts in, even though he's hurt. How many times have we seen guys get voted in while hurt, and then they take him out? We didn't see Will Smith get voted in. Ohtani was the only one that really made Teoscar Hernandez. Despite being one of the league leaders in home runs, didn't get in. Yeah. And I don't want to sit here and just be like, oh, the boogeyman, nobody wanted to vote for the Dodgers. But I think a lot of times there was just similar to Baltimore in the AL. People just didn't want to vote. they didn't want to go what I did and just put all Orioles in the in the starting lineup, so they kind of just went with the alternative.
No, but in the NL though, what they wanted to do was they didn't want to put Dodgers in, but they had no problem putting Phillies in.
Yeah, the Trey Turner one was the only one that was kind of weird because we were all thinking like Bryce Harper's going to make it, and Alec Baum just because third base and else
And
kind
no,
of weak.
and Randy Suarez, I thought for sure would have made it.
Yeah, Suarez. Yeah, as a pitcher, Suarez. But them getting two relievers is kind of wild.
Yeah,
I think that was more a award for them having the best record in the NL.
yeah.
Kind of just how because I think Corbin Burns will probably be the starter in the AL. Just because,
Over Seth Lugo.
yeah, just because it's going to reward the best team.
Okay.
Whereas Seth Lugo, I think on merit should probably be the starter.
Yeah,
I'll probably give it to Corbin Burns just because
that makes sense.
He's the ace on the best team in the league.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
But now that we've gone over all these all-star rosters, how are these teams that have all these all-stars going to improve themselves in the second half of the season? I think we'll kind of just go through a couple teams because we don't want to go too long about it.
No,
we're gonna have 2 episodes coming up right after this, going into the trade deadline. That's going to be completely trade talk.
Yeah.
So I think we should just really hyper focus on a couple of teams. You obviously I'm leaning into you talking about the Red Sox because they've had a lot of chatter from the front office that is maddening. But we'll talk about some other teams that could just be in the market.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll just mention the teams and not not players. And then next few episodes, because we always do a big trade deadline episode.
Yeah.
We'll
pre and post are usually
we'll go
our funnest and longest ones.
Yeah, we'll go full force.
If you've gone through our SoundCloud era, brother.
Yeah, we'll go full force with a trade deadline episode. But I agree. Let's just kind of get some teams that we think are gonna make moves, either selling or buying, and then the next time we'll start making deals.
Yeah. So we've kind of spoiled the lead. I'll let you expound on Craig Breslow's comments about how, and it's just weird to put into words because it's just talking out of both sides of his mouth.
Yeah.
How he's not gonna add, but he's not gonna subtract. And what did you take from both of his press conferences about what the Red Sox plans are going to be heading to the deadline, and what do you realistically think is going to happen for a team that is currently in third place? And let me check where they are on the wild card.
I think they're
they are in the last wild card spot.
But they're not far behind, right?
They are. They are currently, I think, 3.5 games behind the Yankees. So they're
Yankees
3.5 behind the Yankees and 5.5 behind Baltimore.
Okay. All right. So what I took out of the press conference is that Craig Breslow wants to make moves to improve his team and cannot. That's what I took away. And
so he's sitting in the cup chair.
Yes. I think that everybody, including myself, has looked at this Red Sox team and let's call it what it is. They're overachieving. But, sometimes you overachieve and you put yourself in a position to win. And the Red Sox are doing that right now. And the problem I have is that while I think that if they make some moves, they could try to make a run in the playoffs, they won't. And it's only because ownership does not care about the Boston Red Sox anymore. And he has come out and said it a few weeks ago that he does not care about the Red Sox. So I think that Craig Breslow recognizes, oh my God, we're actually a good team, but I can't do anything because they're not gonna agree with whatever I want to do, which is to say, why are you even in a position to make these decisions? Because even if you're subtracting from the team, first off, who are you giving up? If that has any kind of value other than other than uh, Jared Duran, All-Star Jared Duran, or any one of those pitchers. You're not giving up Devers, and if you are giving up Devers, then what was the point of paying him all that money? Um, I just think that Craig Breslow and Alex Cora for sure know that this team is better than what they've been thought of before the season, and I'm sure that he's just as frustrated. I think Craig Breslow is frustrated, and I think that they are going to make either no moves or colossal mistakes at the trade deadline. They will not improve.
I think the biggest thing with Boston, and I think it's a point that you've kind of just kind of brushed by, not intentionally, but on the major league roster, there's nobody really expendable.
No.
It's a roster just held by that thin wire. You can't trade any of that pitching staff. None of those hitters, like you said, Duran is the only guy with a lot of value. Maybe you can trick a team into Connor Wong if you're really committed to Kyle Teal coming up this year, which I don't think they're going to be. And if that's the case, then you got to trade the prospects. But they seem like Marcelo Meyer is untouchable. Okay, if he's untouchable, what are you doing with him?
Exactly.
Are you going to bring him up this year? Are you going to bring him up next year? There's no real. There doesn't seem to be a plan in place for a guy who is a top 20 prospect.
No, and in terms of trading, okay, because I think if the Red Sox are going to do anything, first of all, again, I have to stress it because I think the front office A does not care, and B does not believe in the team no matter what they're doing on the field. Which it seems like it's given them motivation to play as good as they are. Okay, because this team could have easily rolled over and been just like Tampa Bay and one of the worst teams in baseball. But they haven't. In fact, they've been one of the best teams in baseball the last month and a half, surprisingly. However, you look at a guy like Tyler O'Neill, and that is a guy that is a prime trade bait for a contending team. Because in the Red Sox side, they're not a contending team. So you trade Tyler O'Neill to someone like Houston, to someone like Seattle, to someone like Milwaukee, and you try to get these low-level prospects back because you don't have to pay them. And that's the kind of deal I think the Red Sox, Kenley Jansen, those are the kind of deals that I think the Red Sox are going to make.
And I think moving Jansen would be good if you had Garrett Whitlock not out for the rest of the
year. Yeah.
But
and it's like, it's weird. And I want to just say that too, because I have to, and I think it's important for all Red Sox fans. Take where we are now and what this pitching staff has done, surprisingly. Add in Lucas Guerrero. How much better would the Red Sox be? Maybe 5 more games better?
Put a healthy Whitlock into that bullpen.
That's exactly.
Or in the rotation, wherever you were going to utilize him.
So, and the reason I say that is that's the kind of grit that this is. I started this season off on this podcast saying that I was going to boycott the Red Sox. And the kind of grit and determination that this team has done the last month and a half has, I think, shocked everybody.
Yeah.
I think it has. And if your front office telling reporters, it doesn't matter if you're in England or here, that the Red Sox are just an asset, and that's all you're saying is we don't care, and that you don't care that there are more fans of opposing teams at Fenway Park than Red Sox fans, then what's the point of even investing in this team? You know?
But in the same regard, you have all right. If you don't want to put a bunch of money into it, then don't sit here and shoot your mouth out about your farm system.
Yeah.
You have those guys that if you want to win but you don't want to spend, you can go trade Nick York, because is he gonna be on your major league roster in the next 2 years? Probably not.
And even if he is,
Blaze Jordan, is he going to replace Tristan Casas in the next fucking 2 years? No, he's not. So fucking trade him.
And if he is, and he is good, you gonna pay him? Probably not.
No, you're going to wait till he's in his 5th year of arbitration.
And the biggest, most ironic, and saddest thing about this is, what was the point in firing Bloom?
I think we know the answer to that.
But you and I know. I'm saying the front end or the front office. What's the point? If you're not going to let Bradford do anything, you might as well have just kept him.
So what you're saying is, like, I know the building's on fire, but let's just take out the let's leave one fire extinguisher, and we're not going to use it. We'll just leave it there just in case.
No, we're past that. I know the building's on fire, but like I can buy another building. That's where we are.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and there's rumors that, terrible rumors that what's his face is looking to buy the Celtics, and that would be devastating for everybody.
Who's looking to buy from Grossbeck? I may have missed this. That's what I'm asking.
Henry.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh. Then he can have another championship team to neglect. That's fun.
Yeah.
And we'll get about because I have Liverpool discussions to talk about him on another podcast. You can go to American Scouts or go check that out if you want. But
yeah, I mean,
it isn't. Yeah.
When we get to our trade talks, I'll share my thoughts of what I think the Red Sox should do. But for now, I'm just going to say, whatever they do, it's not going to be pretty for Red Sox fans.
Yeah, I think you're going to get more of a Luis Urias than you are going to get somebody of substance.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that front. It sucks because in the National League, Boston, it's the more relevant conversation for around here. But I think if you look at the NL in terms of teams that are in striking distance, and as you can see from my all-star voting, Arizona need to go get 2 guys, because who knows when Merrill Kelly's coming back, and that bullpen is a fucking mess.
But it's Arizona.
But they also have a ton of prospects where they can go move it, and they just don't seem to want to.
But it's Arizona in a position where 1 or 2 guys is gonna help them repeat, or put them in a position to get back to the World Series. I don't know.
No, but if you look at how clogged the bottom of the wild card race is,
yeah, it's pretty. It's yeah.
I I'm sorry. I don't, and sorry to the both Mats, Lou, and all the other Mets fans. I don't have the utmost of faith that the Mets are going to hold up. They've been crushing it the past 3 weeks, but that is a dam that is ready to break. The Cardinals, they are that roster is held together by dental floss right now.
Yeah.
The Pirates, for how good that Paul Skeens and all those guys have done, they are going to be sellers at the deadline no matter how close they are to the playoffs.
What
It's a
about
sad reality.
what about a team that you had a lot of faith in that is only 3 games back in the Cincinnati Reds?
They're just as wild of a card to really just drive that horrible meme home.
But they are also a team that I think could make a deal that could make them believe they could make a run.
I'm with you, and I just I don't know that front office enough to
Yeah.
know if they have the balls to go do it.
Yeah. But again, you're right. I'm looking at it right now. The wild card race for the NL is so congested that until you get to
I
Washington,
think we get to the end of the month, you'll
until
have a better
yeah.
picture of who's.
But I also could knock out a lot of these teams. Let's be real. First of all, take out the bottom two. Miami and Colorado, they ain't making it. Cross them out. They ain't gonna do.
I'll take out Washington as well.
You're gonna take out Washington. Okay. I'm gonna take out the Cubs. And I know I was very high in the Cubs in the beginning. I think they're done. I think they're sellers at the deadline, to be honest. Uh because I think they're in a rebuilding position. Um but then it's Cincinnati and San Francisco. And I think Cincinnati is in a better position to make moves than the Giants.
It's just whether or not they're willing to make that sacrifice.
And then there's other things too. Okay, so let's go back to the off season with two players, and you're talking about Arizona. And I'm going to talk about the Giants. Do you wave the white flag and give up Snell, and do you wave the white flag and give up Montgomery, or do you try to add and make a run? Because both of these pitchers are terrible. They're doing very bad this year.
Yeah.
For how long they were holding out for the crazy money they thought they were going to get and did not get. So, do you just ride it out and let them walk at the end of the year, or do you try to get something out of these guys? And I know you have high hopes on Arizona, but I think maybe these guys are trade baits.
And it's funny because it's a guy that's been there. And I'm not saying they necessarily need to go get him exactly, but if Cincinnati gets a Sonny Gray type person, I think they're going to be in good shape. They just need to get that one stabilizing pitcher because they have a ton of guys.
It's funny you say that because I'm in the same state. I think the Guardians should go get Sonny Gray. And because Sonny Gray is the guy that I think is going to be who everyone is after.
I think that will be a segment we'll do next week.
Next week, yeah.
Who is the Sonny Gray that each team needs to get?
I think he's the guy. I think he's, you know who he is? He's the Zach Greinke of the trade deadline. That's what Sonny Gray is now. And whoever gets him will make the playoffs. Mark my word.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. It's St. Louis can't hold on to him.
No.
And St. Louis is not making it. I hate the Cardinals worse than I hate the Yankees. So
this is definitely a very anti Cardinal podcast.
It's definitely we hate the Cardinal on this podcast. So, but I agree with you. I don't think the team's good. I don't think that they're doing anything special, And I don't think that first of all, they ain't catching Milwaukee. Forget even the wild card thing.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be selling because by the time the trade deadline gets there, I just think they're gonna look at the cluster of the NL wild card and have to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
You know, the Mets are an interesting one because as much as we're torturing our
Yeah.
Mets fans, they keep saying
They
Steve,
could
Uncle
do it. They
Steve,
could go all
they
in.
keep saying Uncle Steve can make these moves, and for all of his crazy faults, he had publicly called out his own team. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he sees himself a game back, 2 games back at that wild card to try to make some moves.
And just
And
just
even if
lets
it
it rip.
costs him Pete Alonso.
We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah,
Our next 2 episodes are going to be fun because it's
they
going to
are.
be a lot of rumor mill, a lot of putting our GM hats on. It's going to be a fun time. We'll see if we can try to pull a couple other people in to just kind of have a
I would
really
say,
just wacky round table of screaming into the trade ether.
yeah,
It'll be a good time.
yes. I think that it will. The trade deadline is always a fun one because there's a lot of people that have their own opinions on how to improve their team that almost never happen. And and for us, I think
I'd say us included.
us
We've
included, yes.
always,
But
we've
for
thrown
us,
a lot of darts.
I think we like to play a little MVP baseball GM mode and try
Yeah.
to mix and match
Very true. It's
some
very true.
teams. Um, but I think one of the reasons that I wanted to bring up Cincinnati uh, was because of just kind of their steadiness. You know, they 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 have a lot of guys on the team that I think can keep them afloat if they just got that one extra person.
Yeah. I think that is the big thing. They are a steady ship, but they need a buoy. They need an anchor, if you will, if we're just going to keep using nautical terms. Uh, they they need somebody that when that one injury comes is going to make sure everything doesn't fall apart. And from just what it looks like, I think the injury is going to come from the pitching staff more than it is from the hitters. The hitters
And
have been fairly healthy, but like Lodolo's already been hurt. Hunter Green is just a guy that he throws a fucking 101 miles an hour.
yeah,
That that elbow injury is just kind of always that specter lurking. So if they just got one guy, especially somebody with playoff experience, to come in and just kind of
guide them.
like, yo, you can take it down to a 9 out of 10 sometimes.
And
I think
and
that'd be huge for them.
and also, with a player like De La Cruz, who's kind of like a bright spot for that team. And I don't want to be prisoner in the moment, but the emergence of Reese Hinds and what he's done since being called up has also kind of been a spark plug for that team.
Yeah.
And again, it's going back to what we talked about the Pirates. You got to invest in your young guys, and if they are exciting enough, and if they're you know talented enough, and in Skeen's case, once in a generation pitcher kind of guy, you have to build the team around them. And if you can figure out a way to keep Hinge, afloat and keep De La Cruz um, the way he's playing and build around those guys, then Cincinnati's got something going.
Yeah. The longer you keep those guys from being found out, the better your chances are. And
Yeah,
if you get to next year and yeah, like you said, Reese ain't hitting home runs every game, and De La Cruz, they got his tails on the base pass, then that's on the coach to
Yep.
go make those adjustments.
Yep. Yep.
Because right now, those are two hot hands.
Yeah.
And you need to just really ride those as much as you can, but build around it so their talents aren't wasted.
After the All-Star game, if you're a GM that's in this wild card run, because let's be honest, by the time August 2nd rolled around, unless there's some colossal collapse, and we've seen them, the division winners are pretty much locked up for the most part. So if you're a wild card, especially with the third wild card, if you're a GM on August 1st, July 31st, whatever it is now, you got to be like, okay, we have to start building a team for October, not August and September, October. And if we can get guys that are going to push us to October, we have to make those moves.
Yeah, I'm with the only race that I think that has any chance of being interesting down the stretch is the AL East. I think the Yankees and the Orioles are the only two teams that are going to really battle it out. Other than that, I don't see.
What about the AL West? I know they're all bad, they're all worse teams, but like in terms of how bad they are moving up
I
and down.
think Houston, and this may just be me in the moment because, and I may be just getting suckered because of the All-Star and how Houston never wants to send people to the All-Star game because they know they're just going to get booed out of the fucking building. I think they're getting hurt at the worst time right now. This is a point where you need to be bridging that gap with Seattle because Seattle is going to not – they're only going to gain confidence.
Yeah.
If you kill them in July and August, they're not going to give you any problems in September.
No.
You have to stomp on their throat now. You need to get them out of first place now. And I haven't seen that ruthlessness from Houston yet. And Texas is just too banged up to catch them. Like, I think both of them are wild card contenders.
Yep.
But I don't think either of them is going to get to Seattle because I don't see the urgency from Houston, and I just don't see the health from Texas.
But at the same time, and the Mariners become something like a meme around these parts.
They're our meme team forever.
Forever. If you're Seattle and you stand pat at the deadline, you've sealed your fate of losing the division and losing because even a team like the Mariners has to make a move. And they did last year, and part of it paid off until they kind of fell off in September. But they still made moves. They still got a pitcher out of it, or a few. You have to make a move. Because if you don't, and you give Houston that window, because I think you're right. I think Texas, they're just too banged up. You know, now maybe they make a move. Maybe Max Scherzer goes on a run.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're Houston and you have an opportunity to get someone, which we've seen time and time again that Houston has done, and catch Seattle, Houston's winning that division based on experience alone and based on the way the team is built.
Yeah.
So you can't afford.
It's incumbent on Seattle. You gotta just read the room and go get stuff.
Someone, even a Sonny Gray.
Yeah, well, and it's like I said, it sounds simplistic, but if you just go get somebody of just a name, and like I said, we're going to be more specific with all of these things for our trade deadline episodes. Because
and if you're a fan of these teams and you're saying, well, one guy can't make a difference, it can. I've seen it 1,000 times over where you get one pitcher or one hitter at the deadline, and it changed the entire dynamic of that team. I've seen the Yankees do it. I've seen the Red Sox do it. I've seen the Phillies do it. It can work.
Yeah, standing pat, I think is worse because I'll give you a name with the Red Sox of a name that you just made a move because you're like you just got to shake things up, and it ended up being Steve Pierce.
Yep, Steve Pierce.
A fucking throwaway move that ended up being a fucking ALCS MVP, and you guys won a fucking World Series.
Yeah,
like,
it's that kind of.
You gotta do something to not only invigorate the fan base, but show your fucking players that you care. That I think that's bigger than anything.
I'll give you another name. You'll know this name because he was on the 2007 World Series team, Eric Gagne. He wasn't the closer for the Red Sox, but guess what? He was in that bullpen and he did a lot. He helped.
And it's something where nobody nobody remembers the guy that you picked up for the 6th inning. No. Nobody remembers the guy that you picked up off the scrap heap because he wasn't even coming from the Dodgers. He was coming from fucking Texas.
Texas, yeah. and you know what? I'll add another Red Sox thing because in 2021 they were bad, and then they got Kyle Schwarber and almost made it to the World Series. One player can make the difference. So if you're thinking that it can't, it can.
Yeah. And on that note, on that one player can make a difference, we'll put that as the teaser for our next couple of episodes because that's basically what the rest of July is going to be on this podcast. It's going to be just speculation and just throwing trades into the wind.
Yeah,
it's the beauty of the silly season of baseball, and we embrace it completely here on Opposite Field.
It's the best time, other than the off season. It's the best time of the year.
Until we get to the playoffs, and I just completely go into just don't hurt me mode. That's where we are.
Yeah.
All right. And so until we return for episode 69, the consensus nicest episode, this has been myself, Trevor, and Colin. I pointed the right way this week, even though my hands are off the screen because I have a standing desk now. This has been episode 68 of Opposite Field. We love y'all. Go follow the page on Facebook so we can get back on there.
Yeah.
Everybody likes the post but doesn't go and like the page. So just like the page.
Yeah. Now we can broadcast the show on Facebook.
Yeah. Everyone's like, I can't. I look at it and it's like
it's not hard.
You don't have to have a Google or YouTube account or go on Twitch. Just like on Facebook. It's gonna be great. We'll put all the links there. We'll send all the shit. But we'll until then, y'all have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.
Toodles.